And here we go. Wonderful. Good to see you here, Jim. Glad you can join us. And could you please introduce yourself and tell my students what your job title and role is?
Okay, well, I'm Jim Garland. I lead a company called Fluidity Design Consultants. We design water features all over the world. The company is comprised of architects like myself, landscape architects, and engineers. The engineers look after the water action, plumbing design, electrical design, and controls. There are 20 of us. These days, most of our work is here in the US.
Very cool. That's awesome. It's fascinating. And I'll go right on to my second, because I know you got a bunch of stuff prepared here. But how has your field changed in the last, is it 19 years or is it 20 that you've been around?
Well, I've been in the profession for more than 30 years, but Fluidity is 19 years old.
Gotcha. So I have to imagine that everything's changed a lot, that is like dictated how much is electronic, how much is 3D printed parts. Like I have to imagine there's a lot of things that change, but what do you think are some of the bigger changes that allowed you to push the boundaries even further than when you started?
Well, there are two avenues for evolution, really. On one side is the physical action that you're referring to, or let's say the production methodologies, the ongoing improvement of the arts. You know, one of the big ones is actually in lighting. It used to be that in order to get different colors in a fountain, you used a red light, a blue light, and a yellow light, and you turn them on and off, a red, blue, and green, actually, red, blue, and green, and you turn them on and off in different combinations to get the color that you want, and you turn them all on and you get a sort of a white. Now that, the really, really expensive fountains had 4 lights, and one of them was white to get a really good white. Today, we use very sophisticated LEDs with numerous little diodes that have different colors in them, and the color combinations are really good, really beautiful. We still have trouble getting orange.
Huh.
And then on the water side, you know, I would say the other category of evolution is in design thinking. Just what do you do with the tools that you have? And in fact, there's been a lot more evolution in design thinking than in the technologies. But additional technologies, we use compressed air now to shoot jets high in the air very efficiently with low energy use, and you'll see those at Longwood Gardens. And of course, at Longwood, we also have the burning water, where there's flame like literally burning on the top of a jet. And I think over there, there are some very advanced robotic gizmos that weren't around when I started in the profession.
Wonderful. Awesome. And I'm guessing this is maybe where you have some of your prepared stuff already here, and this is probably a big area to get into. But my third question was, is there a specific feature in a fountain or display that most people find incredibly impressive, but when you get down to it, it's actually really simple, basic, compared to some of your other stuff? It's not as involved maybe, but you still end up with a beautiful, impressive result.
Yes, definitely. There is a fountain that's extremely popular in Oklahoma City, which I am going to show you, but I can tell you about it. It makes like a miniature tsunami wave that courses across a pool. The rest of the time, the pool is very serene. There's no waves. And after the wave goes by, there's no more waves. It's just the one wave. We say that a soliton wave, which is different from sinusoidal action, which normal wave propagates like that. This is just one wave. And what we do is that we, just like when you're a kid and you play in the bathtub and you got a cup and you hold the cup up above the water line and then you lift it up a little further and it splashes around. The exact same principle, only much larger, where we have a vacuum chamber that's above the water line and we suck the water up into it, and we release a valve and it all comes out at once and it creates this soliton. It's not just in a pool, it overflows its 2 edges. So the wave moves forward and this cascade kicks up as it goes. And, just people they love that. It looks great, And
Yeah.
so that's probably the most interesting example of a very, very simple system that just looks like spectacular.
Huh. That sounds pretty cool. Excellent. And you said you'd be able to show us that at some point?
Sure. Yep.
Sure. I have my questions, but you also have your presentation, your video and stuff ready for sharing. Should I go through my questions and then let you share your stuff?
I think your questions are very good, and that will help people see things in the video later. So please proceed.
Perfect. Great. I have my students go through a bunch of presentations where I gave them these separate fluid dynamics categories. And I know things like Rayleigh-Taylor instability and Kelvin-Helmholtz are more about mixing fluids and flowing across, and they're going to involve fluids of often different temperature or different density. And I'm guessing most of your stuff focuses on water and not different density, but I could be way off. So I'm guessing those aren't as big for you, but I'm sure stuff relating to laminar and turbulent flow, to things with Bernoulli's, with cavitation. These are topics that you have more familiarity with than probably anybody I've talked about. So I just name dropped a handful of them. Which of those do you actually find yourself regularly working with or having the most comfort with for some of these fluid dynamics principles?
First of all, let me say that you're right. What you're guessing, that we don't work in multiple fluids. It's almost like an art attitude that everything we do is just with pure water, and so how magical the thing you see is, it's just water that you're working with, and that's kind of a beautiful idea. However, I am aware of 2 mercury fountains in the world that use a body of water on top of a pool of mercury, and the interactions between the two are intriguing. These are in very controlled environments, since mercury is a heavy metal and a poison. So we don't touch that stuff. So the principles that we work with, we certainly work with various kinds of turbulence, laminar flow. I'll show you some laminar flow action, which is when the opposite of turbulence, really, when all the molecules are moving in pretty much the same direction at the same rate of speed, which can be achieved in various ways. And we work with also something that you didn't mention, which is aeration. Water moving slowly does not aerate, but when you speed it up, it entrains air. Okay, and when water aerates or becomes white with little bubbles in it, in most optical environments, it becomes more visible, and so making something go from, we say, subcritical to supercritical speed is something that we work with as a design element. Bernoulli is something that is very interesting physical action effect. And there has been a fountain that I know of made with where a ball is balanced on a jet sort of magically, but it's actually being held there by Bernoulli himself. It's not a very great fountain, and so we've never done anything with Bernoulli.
Excellent. I was even showing, I've got my cup of coffee right here. I can't imagine that you'd even want to go into mixing fluids, because while it might be an easier thing to do, like I've shown with this cup of coffee how you can mix fluids and some of the stuff with that, but for a practical large scale fountain, you would then have to unmix them. Like it'd be a one-time thing. You wouldn't be able to easily mix fluids unless they're extremely different densities. I like your beauty of water. I like what you can do with just one fluid, and you're getting into all the other stuff, but you've piqued my curiosity. I want to go find out more about that the mercury fountains now. I will definitely want to look at that. That sounds interesting. Excellent.
Actually, I would say I can think of 2 examples of mixing medium that are pretty good that we just haven't done. One of them is the lava lamp back from the 70s or whatever. A lava lamp is basically a vertical source with a light bulb in the bottom, and there's wax inside. and it's filled with water. And when the wax is heated, it moves up and kind of makes this interesting shape, and then it cools and it falls back down. And so there's this slow motion effect that's actually very hypnotic, and you can pick the color of the light or the color of the wax or something, and it's really interesting. Now, that's a good example of, I think, reasonably good art with mixing two densities
Right.
and other properties. Another one is, maybe you've seen these little tabletop waves that are like teeter totters, and this slow motion wave goes back and forth inside them.
Yeah.
That is oil and water in a box,
Mhm.
in a clear box, and it's pretty cool to see the slow motion wave action. And you know, it's their properties are so separate that they will very quickly separate themselves out as soon as it slows down.
Right.
So, and again, we would never do that, but those are good examples,
Yeah.
I think.
I actually use about a 3-foot tall lava lamp when we're teaching thermodynamics, because convection flow in a lava lamp is one of the easiest ways to show rising hot, descending cold, how that goes in there.
Yeah.
It's great stuff, and it's mesmerizing. I can't leave it on too long in the front of the classroom. It's just distracting for me as well. But anyway, let's get to some of your personal experience here. My final question before we get to your stuff here says, do you have any fun stories related to fluid dynamics that you would like to tell, where a team member's knowledge of physics or science in general helped them to solve a problem in an unexpected way?
There are examples of that. I don't really have fast encyclopedic retrieval.
That's okay.
Okay, I'll tell you one right now. Okay, right now. Of course, you know that there was a terrible massacre of little children in Sandy Hook about 10 years ago, right? Some mentally disturbed young man killed a bunch of, I think, first graders or something. It's terrible, terrible.
Right.
That community, terribly wounded, actually tore down that school. Okay, the building doesn't exist anymore. And they've rebuilt the school, and they're building a park now, and in the park will be a fountain. The fountain will be in the form of a ring of water with a beautiful specimen tree in the center. And the water will be streaming counterclockwise very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
People will be able to put small boats with little lights on them, little flickering candles on them in the water. And the candle will spin around slowly and then touch the shore of the island. And you could put 100 candles and they'll all go to the shore of the island. And they'll hover there for a while. And then they will, at a certain time, they will start to migrate back and come back to the outer shore.
Wow.
Now, that's a poetic idea that was brought to us by the landscape architects who came up with the idea. It's a beautiful idea. And
Yeah.
they said, hey, Fluidity, can you do that? And I said, absolutely, we can do it. And I had conceived of this system that would create the water to move around in a circle, which is a problem because the water keeps trying to vector outward. So you've got, however you want to say it, centripetal or centrifugal force, however you want to approach that idea. So it's going the wrong way. We're trying to get it to bend. And then secondly, how do you get it to go this way or that way? And all the while, not so much create so much turbulence that you'll capsize the boats. How do you do all that? Well, my idea was that there be continuous overflowing edges on both sides. So there'd be a trough on both sides that would be hidden by a coping, and that one is either flooding and the other one draining, or this one flooding and that one draining. So it would create a lateral motion across the ring shape. I had this all worked out. It was very expensive. It was going to work. My senior engineer was actually screaming at me that it was so stupid. So I'm not in the habit of being screamed at, but I promise you, I was worried about his heart pressure. Okay, it was, and he was, his thought was entirely different and much more economical, which was that you'd want to just pressure the water, create a perimeter surge at the two walls, the outer and inner wall, that would literally change the level of, people say, oh, water is level, like water is always level. That's not always true. In fact, the quote is not that. The famous quote is that water seeks its own level. It's like a verb.
Right.
So it's in the process of trying to be level all the time. Water is always trying to be level, right? So John's idea was the water should either try to be level by surging on the outer ring of the pool and making the boat slide by gravity to the other side, and then surge on the inside. And his point is that that's infinitely easier than all this complicated hoogog, and he didn't even believe that the top surface was going to act on that one. He's not really trained as an engineer. He's a physicist on our staff who became a water engineer just by the way careers go. I have no doubt that he's right. We are building a mock-up to study this in Sandy Hook right now.
That's really fascinating. When's your projected, when do they want the final one by?
Oh, construction will be finished in about 1.5 years.
Awesome. Sandy Hook's not that far from here.
Yeah.
We'll have to, I'll have to mention that in years to come. I'm certainly want to check that out. That's beautiful. I love the idea of that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful idea.
And thank you. That's a great example of thinking about just using problem solving strategy. And the physicist, I'm sorry that the physicist screamed at you. That it wasn't too negative of a result from that. But those were my main questions, but you've got stuff to share here. So I'll switch over. I'll unpin you from my side here and let you take over because you've got some good stuff, I think.